Welcome to the MindJam podcast, where we dive deep into the future of work, explore the secrets of workplace well-being, and uncover the magic of personal branding and development. Our mission is to help you discover your inner gem so you can shine brightly and make a positive impact in your life and career. I'm your host, Rana, and today we have a special guest joining us. He's none other than Alex Dwek, Chief Operating Officer of NAS Academy. He's responsible for running the overall business operations for the technology arm of NAS Academy. Alex joined the company in 2020 and worked across the business from partnership, operations, growth, and fundraising. Prior to NAS, Alex spent 4 years as a general manager in Southeast Asia tech ecosystems, helping to set up and lead new businesses that scale to tens of millions of users in Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia for technology giant like Uber and regional super app Grab. Alex is originally from UK and now lives in Singapore with his wife and 3 kids. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to warmly welcome Alex. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. I've heard a lot of amazing things about the work that you're doing for NAS Academy, NAS company as well. So thank you so much for, taking time for being here.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to discussing a lot of things with you today.
Yes, especially, with regards to content creation, personal branding, as well as community building as well.
Yeah.
So super excited. So Alex, tell us a little bit more about your background and what brought you into, doing this at NAS Academy, NAS Company.
Sure. I'd be happy to. So I have been living in Singapore the last 9 years. I moved out here because of my job. I was working in the world of consulting and business. And when I got here, I started working in technology. So I worked at a company called Uber, which used to exist in Singapore. And then it became part of Grab. And I was working in the food delivery space. So I was doing a lot of things around technology and consumer technology. And the world of content creation and social media was something that I was aware of, because even in that space, people were working with influencers. People were realizing that you could use social media as a marketing channel. Yeah. But in about 2020, when the pandemic was really fully underway, I came across NAS Company and NAS Academy. And at that time, what NAS realized was that this world of content creation was only going to become more relevant and more important to every single business, every single company. And in order to do that, there needed to be education. And that was when I realized that just like when I was at Grab, that it opened up an opportunity for small businesses and entrepreneurs to have a way to make money. I saw similarities in the world of content creation. And I said, look, in the future, I also think there are going to be millions of people around the world who are going to be able to build a business because of content creation. And that was why I decided to jump in and work at NAS Company. That was, at the time, 4 years ago, it was just a team of 8 people in an office in Singapore. And fast forward 4 years later, we're about 120 people all around the world. I'm the COO of the company, so I'm responsible for the business and operations. And it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. That is so cool. And, I'm just always curious about, the world of content creation, right? And how, in your experience, leading NAS Company, right? How does content creation actually helps businesses or even professionals to actually help them in building their personal brand, as well as, getting more visibility for either their business or even their careers as well?
Yeah, so I think when a lot of people look at the world of content creation, they imagine a woman or a man with a camera, like a vlogger traveling around the world. Yeah. But that is not really what social media is today. Yeah. Social media and content creation, in my opinion, is a tool for individuals and for companies to reach people. Right? I think in the past, if you wanted to reach people, you had to use traditional advertising. So you had to use things like TV, magazines, newspapers, billboards, right? And in that situation, those media companies would control who would get that exposure and who would see your content. Yeah. But today, because of social media, anyone anywhere can create a piece of content or an advertisement or a story, and it can reach millions of people. And it's not the individual company or media company who decides who goes there. It's really down to the algorithm, and the algorithm responds to what people want, which means that you or I can sit here and we can, tell a really interesting story on social media, and we can reach a lot of the world. And why that's interesting is because it gives brands, entrepreneurs, and companies a new marketing channel. So if you're a company, you can say, hey, if I tell an interesting story on social media, I can reach my customers, my potential customers, in a very cost-effective way. Right. But if I'm an individual, I can also tell my story in a very cost-effective, engaging way. And that can be really important for companies because it can be a way to grow. Yep. And it can be important for individuals as a way to grow your career or to grow, your own business or your goals. And so when you look at it that way, it's no longer about being an influencer traveling the world, right? It's really about how can I take advantage of this technology to achieve my own goals.
Yeah, cool. And I was just chatting with one of my friends. She told me that she just listened to this podcast about content creation, and she was like, she heard of like all these content creators like earn so much money. And it's like, why am I doing in the corporate space,
Interesting.
It was quite interesting. And in your, in your experience of, educating content creators on how to build their personal brands and their influence as well, what are some tips and, strategies that you basically support these content creators to be able to do that a lot more effectively?
Yeah. So when I think of making money with social media, you can look at it two ways. So the first way is, how do I make money as an individual? Right? And so as an individual, I think about, okay, as an individual, I can either make money because people want to use my social media to reach people. Let's just say I'm a company that wants to sell a product. I think that, Alex's LinkedIn has people in it that may want to buy my product. Yeah. So I can pay him to make a piece of content, a video, a post that reaches his audience. It's kind of like advertising using your audience. Yeah. Another way as an individual you can make money is to offer your advice. So LinkedIn becomes, or any social media becomes, a way that you show that you're a thought leader and you're influential, right? So if you're sharing a lot of knowledge about, for example, how to enter the Singapore market, a company who wants to enter the Singapore market may search who are experts on how to enter the Singapore market. And they'll decide based on who has got the most interesting, relevant, insightful information out there. And they'll probably search first with content. Yeah. So then the second way you can make money as an individual is to be a speaker or a consultant to offer advice to companies. So I would say these are the two most common ways. It's like as a thought leader and as someone who is almost like a distributor, right? Those are two ways. Now, when you're a company, you can also make money on LinkedIn. And this is where I think people underestimate the power of social media. Yeah. So if you are a company, LinkedIn is one of the best places, or social media is one of the best places to find potential customers. Yeah. So when we do sales in a traditional sense, we send thousands of emails, like cold emails. And this is a problem because they're anonymous. People get so many emails, right? And then they just tend to ignore most of them. Yeah. But as an individual, if I then use content to talk about my product or what I'm trying to solve, then what LinkedIn does is helps me reach CEOs, marketers, executives, and they come to me because they're like, wow, they're saying something interesting. I want to talk to them. Yeah. So actually, LinkedIn and social media becomes that inbound sales channel. And that is actually, on a personal note, for NAS Company, we've had a lot of success with doing that. Most of our business comes through people responding to our content, saying, I want to work with you. Yeah. And that's why with NAS Academy, we believe that actually every single type of professional or individual needs to learn the skills of social media. It's not just about being a marketer. It's about being, a salesperson. You could be in policy and government and you need content to tell the story of what you're trying to do for the country. You could be someone who's in operations. You could be someone who's a CEO or a founder. You need to be able to tell that story. And most importantly, what we've learned is that people, consumers, fall in love with people, not faceless brands.
Exactly.
And that's a big change from maybe 5 or 10 years ago, when you'd see these big budget advertisements for like Coca-Cola or, you know, a car manufacturer. Now people want to know the person behind it.
Yeah.
And that's the big change that's happened in the world.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. Like, I mean, nowadays people buy people first before they buy brands, right? And I think for me, personally speaking on my own experience as well, this content creation piece is something very new to me as well. And honestly, it has really opened up a lot of doors of opportunities that I've never thought possible, right? Since I started on this journey about 2 years ago, especially on LinkedIn, it has really helped me to generate like leads for my business, good quality one. And as well as like, you know, attracting brand sponsorship, brand opportunities, like getting paid to create content for brands, right? Which I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. And there's 2 things that I share with people when they ask me, is this an area that I should invest in?
Yeah.
So the first thing I ask them is I say, do you know who the CEO of Toyota is? And they say, normally no, right? And then I say, do you know who the CEO of Tesla is?
Yeah.
And most people say yes. They say, oh, Elon Musk,
Yeah.
right? I say, why do you know that? And most of them say, well, it's because of content, right?
Yeah.
Because of Elon Musk's very active on social media.
Exactly.
So this is one example of what content can do to build awareness and connection.
Yeah.
But the second example I use is more on a personal note, which is that I looked at my career recently around the jobs that I have got. And what I realized was that I have 100% rejection rate of applying to jobs online through traditional ways, meaning like submitting an application through email or through job app boards. But I've had a lot of success through getting like interest, inbound people contacting me or speaking directly to the hiring manager or the employer. And what I realize is that in today's world, it's so competitive to get a job. But if you can stand out in your industry through things like content, you automatically create a door, a window, a hook, right, to have those conversations for jobs, for partnerships. And that is, I think, super powerful. Because one of the things that I've learned through social media is that if you take, I think there are 5 billion internet users, but only 1% of those users create content. 99% of people consume content.
Lurker,
exactly. They're just watching for entertainment, learning, education. So if you can be in that 1%, you already have such a big advantage.
Totally. I totally with you. I mean, I run some career workshops for the undergrad students and postgrads as well. I always tell them that like, hey, content is really the new CVs. If you cannot even, you know, put yourself out there and attract your potential employers, right? Forget about really sending resumes and going through the traditional way of job searching because it's so competitive, right? And that's why content creation is super important to really help you to be stand out in front of, you know, hiring managers, potential employers. And that's where it's a lot easier for you to be able to stand up and also get visibility, right? And apart from that, also get visibility at the workplace as well. Because a lot of people, especially the, you know, like the professionals, they always think that like, I'm not sure how much should I share because, you know, some employers will think that like, oh, I'm like looking out for a job or something like that. You know, what's your thought on that?
That's a great question. I get asked this a lot. People are nervous because they're like, if I create content, maybe I'm promoting myself too much or maybe people will think I'm looking for a job. So I think that there are 2 answers to that question. The first one is when you look at the span of your career, you've got to realize that any job, unless it's your own company, may last, you know, a few years, right? But your personal brand will last forever. And so if you take a long view, you have to build that personal brand, right? So that's one thing. The second thing though is around, you know, it's all about the type of content you produce. So for example, if I spend time telling everyone that I'm wonderful, right? I'm a wonderful product manager. I'm a wonderful content creator. And I'm kind of promoting content that's making me look for a job. It looks like I'm looking for a job. Then I think your employer would probably say, well, I'm unhappy with that because you're talking about all things that are not relevant to my industry. You're not really helping your job. You're just spending all this time promoting yourself.
Right.
But if you're saying, look, I'm in an industry, let's just give an example. I'm in the industry of learning and development, right? And I decide to create content where I share my knowledge around learning and development. So I'm helping others. It's relevant to the industry that I'm in. And I'm showing that I'm getting a lot of people talking to me who are in my industry and therefore can contribute to my company in some way.
Right.
Then it's kind of a win-win. You know, it's a win for me because I'm building my personal brand. It's a win for my company because by me being more vocal, I'm also positively promoting my company as well.
Right.
So I think that the type of content is very important. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we teach at NAS Academy is to how to build sort of content pillars, which help you think about what is the right content to make and what is not the right content to make. So, for example, if you're in an industry that's maybe a little bit more sensitive, maybe you're doing something where, you know, there's lots of regulation. Finance is a good example. You know, you have the MAS and others, right? You may know there are certain things you can't talk about, but there may be things that are very important around finance, like personal finance. You know, a lot of people want to know, you know, what are the different options out there to start saving money? You know, how do I, you know, just think about saving money like weekly? How do I manage my grocery spend? You know, there are all these things that are not regulated that are good to talk about. So I think it's really more about the topic versus saying, I cannot do this or I can do this. And actually employers, we're doing a lot of work with employers because I think employers are becoming a lot more understanding. I think 5 years ago they were scared, but now they see it as an important part of growing their brand awareness.
For sure. Yeah. I got like a lot of invitation nowadays to actually run workshops on content creation for employers, right? Because they wanted, you know, the employees to be able to build their personal brands, to be able to attract, you know, recruitment, talents for their business, as well as also enhance their employer brand at the same time.
Yeah, and it's not just actually employers, even the government. I mean, people who want to go into government,
Yeah.
many government departments in Singapore and beyond have worked with ourselves and others
Yeah.
to teach their employees
Yeah.
how to create content.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. I mean, it ranges from, you know, people in the police, for example, to people who work in media, to people who work in science,
Yeah.
because they all understand that there is a story to be told
Yeah.
and you need to reach people. So that shows you that this is not just a niche idea that only a few people will do.
Yeah.
I think that decision makers, all from all different industries, realize that their employees, you know, need these skills for the future.
Exactly. Yeah. Alex, in your observations, right, like meeting so many content creators, what are some mistakes that a lot of content creators are making and how can we avoid that?
Great question. So I think that many content creators focus on incremental improvements. So what they say is, oh, what time should I post? Right? Or,
I get that question, you know, so many times.
Well, you know,
every time.
You know, what time should I post to make my video go viral? Or if I change, how long should my video be? Or, you know, and what I try to tell those people is that these things do matter to an extent, right? It is true that, you know, you may get more views when more people are on social media, which may not be in the middle of the night in Singapore, for example, if you're targeting a Singapore audience. But the difference between going viral and not going viral is not about what time you post. It's about the idea in your content.
Exactly.
So good ideas go viral, bad ideas do not go viral. So if you post something and it does not get a lot of traction, it is probably not the time of day.
Yeah.
It might not be the format. It's probably the idea. And so instead of tinkering with that, the first thing I would always recommend is start with the idea, experiment more with the ideas and make sure your idea is good. So I'll give you an example where I tested over about 90 days. I made 80 to 90 pieces of content. And what I found is in those 90 days, I got 1.5 million impressions, like views on LinkedIn. But actually, that was, I think, 80% of the views were from 5 pieces of content. So it's like 5% of the posts got 95% of the views, approximately, right? And what I realized when I looked at it was those 5 ideas were just way better than the 95 others, right? And so when I realized that, it showed me the importance of consistency and posting regularly. So if you post once a month, you only have 12 times in a year to be successful. If you post twice a week, you have 104 times to have a success. So that would be my second piece of advice, which is, especially at the start, post regularly and often. Don't worry that every post needs to be perfect, because you'll learn more from the mistakes than you will by just trying to make that perfect video or piece of content.
Totally. And I think a lot of times when people come to me as well seeking for help, a lot of them always all these reasons or challenges they come to me is like, I lack of content ideas, my content not very interesting, people not very engaged, or there is so many content creators out there, so noisy, right? How do you stand out, right? But I think a lot of times also I realize that these are all the tip of the iceberg, right? All these things. But I also realize that a lot of the below the iceberg is all about the fear of putting yourself out there, the fear of failure, or the fear of being judged.
100%.
Right. And imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to even speak about this topic, right? It's always the challenges that people face in terms of content creations and all that. And I always believe that is like 80% is about mindset and 20% is the strategy, right?
For sure. And I will tell you one thing that I've seen now working with hundreds of content creators. Most people look at content creating and be like, wow, they're so talented at content creation, and I have imposter syndrome because I'm not as good as them.
Yeah.
My advice is go back to their first video, go back to their first post, and I guarantee you it will not be very good.
Yeah.
And that's because most of the skills on content creation, whether it's on-camera presence, writing skills, editing skills, all come through practice.
Exactly.
It's not that you suddenly come on and you're perfect. Yeah. So when you understand that, first of all, I would say you should never be scared to try. But the second thing is that we sometimes have an overinflated importance of our videos and our content, and we think, oh my goodness, if I post a bad video or a bad LinkedIn post, everyone's going to remember how bad it was, right? Yeah. I guarantee you that you're only as good as your last post, meaning no one remembers what you wrote 3-4 times ago. If you look back honestly yourself and said, do I remember? So if I ask myself, do I remember what, PSB Academy posted 3 weeks ago? No, I don't, because brains don't consume that, right? Yeah. They don't understand it. So if you realize that, then if you have a bad post, people are not going to remember. Then it takes the pressure off. So I would just say you have to put yourself out there in practice. Yeah. Keep going. Now, 5 years ago, if you wanted to create content, it was really difficult because you needed to find your ideas. Yeah. You needed to write the script. You needed to have a nice camera to shoot. Yeah. You needed to use editing software. Yes. Right? It was a big deal. Yeah. Today, we have ChatGPT for idea generation. It can even write a script. Yes. We have amazing tools to make videos, right? We can shoot on really high quality on our iPhone or, and then we can edit on tools like CapCut where we don't even need to know how to edit, right? Yeah. So if you think about it, it has never been easier to get started
than ever
before. And there's time is not necessarily a reason. And soon, I think even now, skill of how to do these things don't necessarily need to be a reason. And I read something the other day which said, the future of all these different programs and creation and even engineering is going to be how you write, because we're going to use AI to prompt so many things. Yeah. Right. So today I'll give you an example in content creation. If I really like a video or a script that I've seen from someone else, I can use ChatGPT and say, hey, could you break down what are the key ingredients of this script to help me write my own script? And it would give you, and you write it in 2 paragraphs, and you'd have the summary of what are the key structure of that script. And you could say, I want to use this as inspiration to write my own script around this topic. So you can even use techniques like this, right? And this is what the potential is in the future to be able to create content in all different ways.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Talking about imperfect videos, I
Yes.
just created one super imperfect, like not long ago, actually, about 3 weeks ago, right? And I literally contemplating whether I should post it or not because it was unedited. It was like the image and the video, it was not even in sync.
Mm.
And wow, but that video took me a surprise that it managed to reach like 6 million impressions. That was
Wow.
like insane. Like I've never get that kind of impression ever, right? And I think one thing that really taught me about that particular video was like, hey, you don't really need to be perfect to
No.
even create content, right? I mean, that like super lousy videos can actually get a 6 million
They can.
impressions. You know, what if you can actually put in a lot more effort? And even sometimes I also felt that a lot of times the imperfections is something that connects people. You know, like, if that kind of video also can reach that kind of impressions, maybe I can do a lot better, right? And I think it's an encouragement for people as well.
Absolutely. So that example of getting 6 million impressions,
Yeah.
I love that example because I think what it shows is that the consumer, the people who watch content, are not looking for perfection.
Yeah.
They're not looking for the most polished, perfectly produced cinematographic,
Yeah.
movie.
Yes,
They're looking for authenticity.
exactly.
They're looking for something they can relate to.
Mm.
They're not on social media for ads.
Yeah.
So your video,
Mm.
the reason why it connected with people is because of the story you were telling,
Yeah,
not because of how well produced it was.
exactly.
So that is an opportunity for everyone, right?
Mm.
Because it means that if you have a good story to tell, you don't need to be an expert in video editing,
Yeah.
but you need to learn storytelling. You
Mm.
need to learn how to convey that message
Mm.
in a way that resonates with people.
Yeah.
And, NAS Daily, it took us 270 attempts to get our first viral video.
Right.
And it was much harder. That was 8 years ago, right? So it was like editing, shooting. Sorry, the founder had to do that. But I think today what we've realized is that there is a curriculum and a system to storytelling,
Mm.
to shooting, to editing. And that's sort of why at NAS Academy, we've partnered with PSB Academy to be able to create a program
Yeah.
to do that.
Yes.
Because today, if you learn that framework, you can actually start storytelling more effectively and creating content yourself.
Mm.
Right? And we think education is the best place to start.
Yeah.
And then you have to do.
Yes.
Learn, do, learn, do.
Yeah. Talking about that, right? How did that collaboration came about?
Yeah, so that happened it was in the pandemic actually.
Okay.
And in 2020, what happened was globally, there was this big surge to consuming content. So platforms like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook were just getting more and more people watching content.
Yeah.
And I think that was an awakening for businesses and others to realize that we need to use social media more.
Yeah.
So I think that that was when at NAS Academy, we started working more and more with companies.
Mm-hmm.
And PSB Academy was very forward looking and realized that, there is a need to have this as a formal educational structure, like a curriculum.
Right.
So they had a program in digital marketing and they're saying, we need a social media component and we want to partner with people in the industry. So it was like a perfect match.
Right.
PSB realizing that, more and more people in the future are going to want to learn this. And we said, we want to partner with an institution that has the ability to accredit people, right? Because when you want to learn these skills, employers want to see that you're not just taking an online course, but that actually you have been accredited at learning these skills. So it was a really perfect match.
Yeah.
We started working together in 2021, and we've been running programs every single year
Oh.
as part of the diploma in media and communications. And and more students every year taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only has it been a success from the fact that we're collaborating and offering this, but we're constantly refreshing the curriculum because this world changes every few months.
Yeah.
So the good thing about an industry partnership is that every time something in social media changes, NAS Academy and PSB work together to update the curriculum. So 3 years ago, there was not really much TikTok.
Yeah.
Today, TikTok is one of the most important platforms.
Yes.
LinkedIn is
Yeah.
becoming more and more relevant.
Yes.
So we teach, everything around storytelling for social media to things like shooting, editing. And I would add one other point, which is that not everyone needs to be in front of the camera. In this world of content creation, there's a whole industry around script writing,
Newsletter.
newsletters.
Yeah.
editing,
Exactly.
publishing. So it's all around, okay, I want to run the social media page, right? How do I get growth? Businesses need this as well.
Yeah.
As we said before, the people learning are not just people who want to make a career from this. They may want to go in the government. They may want to be CMOs. They may want to start their own business. They just realize that social media is going to become a part of them. Just like building a resume is, just like learning how to write is, this is going to be a skill that everyone needs.
Cool. And could you tell a little bit more about the program, especially for the diploma in media and communications that is offered by PSB, right? Like, what are apart from storytelling, script writing, editing, and stuff like that, right? Is there a specific target audience that you are targeting this program for? Is it for only the marketing industry, or it's basically designed to achieve, the outcomes for other professionals or industries as well?
No, absolutely. So this is not just for marketing professionals.
Okay.
That's a really important point. We see that people from all walks of life, people who want to start businesses, people who just want to learn these skills as part of their repertoire. So you don't have to be just a marketer to take this program.
Okay.
And we actually encourage other people from other disciplines to take part in this.
Right.
One of the reasons why they want to join this is because it's very practical. It's you learn and you do, meaning you learn the theory behind how to storytell, how to create content, and then you actually create content.
Cool.
And a lot of the instructors are actually content creators themselves. So this is one of the best ways we found to learn. And just like we said at the beginning, you got to learn by publishing.
Exactly.
So you learn the storytelling, the scripting, the shooting, the editing, and the publishing. How do you go viral? How do you understand the data from social media to improve your content and to make it? So this is like the key skills we believe that anyone needs to do. And in our company, as an example, our head of finance creates content. Our marketing team creates content. Our sales team creates content. Our CEO obviously does.
You've got to walk the talk, right?
Yeah, but it's not people do it in their own way.
Yeah.
There's not just one single formula.
Yeah.
But you do need to understand how successful people do it in order to find your own voice.
Yes. And I think that's the beauty of content creation. Is really about using that tools as a way of like vehicles to express yourself, right?
Absolutely.
According to your own styles, your own voice as well.
And I would say the success can be just success is not measured by having like millions of people.
Yeah.
One of the most successful parts of content creation is finding a niche. So for example, let's just say your target audience, let's say you're writing academic papers around a topic. Let's just think about something in Singapore. Let's talk about sustainability.
Yeah.
Right. A very important
topic.
You may just really want to be a thought leader in sustainability. If you're able to make content on social media about ideas, the future of sustainability, and as a result of that, people in the world of sustainability see your ideas, that is success. Because off the back of that, you may be invited to speak at a sustainability conference.
Right.
You may be invited to publish a paper in someone's journal, right? You may be hired by a company as a consultant to help them think about how they can make their buildings more sustainable, right? If they discover you through your content, even if one of those things happen, it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think this is the mindset shift that I want people, listening or watching this podcast to think about, which is that your social media channel is not about getting the maximum views. It's all about getting opportunities or leads.
Yeah.
Leads to have these conversations. It's so important. When you look at it that way, you say, I just need to find one conversation from this, and that's enough. So I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think therefore you need to start, at any starting point.
Yeah.
And just one positive interaction makes it worthwhile.
Cool. Just coming back to the PSB Academy programs as well. Have you seen like some case studies or success stories, right, that the students have actually created taking from this diploma in media communication?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen students who've had content go viral. We've seen students who've gone on to get jobs in in social media.
Cool.
So I think that it's the start of their journey.
Yeah.
Of course, being part of the program, the success metric, like the success is not how viral do you go or what do you drop. Really the whole program is designed for people to learn, right? And so I look at success as people creating content, right? As long as they start creating, and we have specific goals in the program. You need to create X number of videos. You have homework, right? But the idea is, as you said before, putting yourself out there, right? And so over time, I think what we'll see in the alumni is more and more people who end up being part of this ecosystem, creating content, whether they do it from a personal brand, whether they end up working in the world of social media, or podcasting, or anything similar. And then, I think at NAS Academy, what we're seeing is people outside of that, in the diploma, also building the ecosystem in Singapore as well. So those worlds combined. So for example, we had invited the students last year to a physical conference called NAS Summit, where students from PSB Academy could also come and meet other content creators in person. And that's a great way of giving people the opportunity to learn also from not just people in the program, but from the leading creators in Southeast Asia as well.
Beautiful. And just talking a little bit more about some of the components you mentioned earlier about storytelling and authenticity in brand building, right? How does storytelling and authentic storytelling can actually help people in building their personal brand? If you have like some tips and tricks to help us show us like how can we start on the storytelling piece to bring about the authenticity part.
So I think one of the fundamentals of storytelling on social media is to be three points we talk about, the golden rule of three. So you need to be simple, you need to be universal, and you need to be relatable, right? So what that means in practice is that when someone is scrolling social media, they may only give you a few seconds of their time before they scroll on. Therefore, if you end up making something that's very complicated to understand and it's very long, you're not going to grab their attention. And so even if you have a complicated idea, you need to try and tell the story as simple and as easy to understand as possible. And that is the storytelling skill.
Right.
So most people say, oh, this idea is too complicated. No way I can say it in 3 lines. But the truth is you can.
Right.
It's an art to get it like that. With NAS Daily, we mastered the concept of a 1-minute video, right? And that was the idea. This is how we learned the skills of storytelling. We built the framework for the PSB Academy program, which was that how do you tell the story of a country in 1 minute? How do you tell the story of this new technological breakthrough in 1 minute? We even covered things like how to tackle malaria as a disease in 1 minute. These are big ideas. They're complicated ideas. But it's possible. So I think that in the storytelling component of the Diploma of Media and Communications, we cover how to do this in a very structured way.
Right.
So even actually, if you decide not to be a content creator, this is useful for presentations. This is useful for public speaking. This is a very important skill. That's something that I've learned a lot from the program as well. And so that's one really important component. The other part of storytelling is really understanding who your audience is, right? And, if I'm talking to CEOs, it's very different than if I'm talking to, high school students, right? And really narrowing that down in the creation process.
Cool. That's cool. I wanted curious to hear a little bit more about like in terms of community building. I know that community building is such a big part of NAS company. And how do you start, building a community for NAS? And is there any advice which you share to people, entrepreneurs who wanted to build their own community as well?
Absolutely. So I think social media is the start of building community. It's not the end. So when you build an audience, so social media helps you reach a lot of people, but actually in order to build community, you need to go deep with them. And I think that in order to do that, you don't need a lot of people to build community. So for example, let's just say you reached 6 million people with your video, right? But all you need really inside is 50 to 100 people to really build a relationship and go deep with. And so the way we see community building going is find the people on social media, but then actually build a relationship with them off social media. So that could be in the real world through things like physical events and others, or it could be through education, through running workshops, coaching sessions. And there's a whole host of ways to do that. So at NAS Company, we are thinking about how people can build a community for a business, which is to say, for example, let's say I talk to, I think you talk to a lot of people in the like who want to learn LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
You might talk to what marketers. Well, who are your target audience?
My target audience or my coaching clients are, a lot of them are consultant coaches, business owners, as well as professionals as well. Yeah, but a lot of entrepreneurs and consultants.
Which is a great example. So you may reach entrepreneurs and business owners through your LinkedIn, right? But actually, if a business owner wants to build content on LinkedIn, they're going to learn as much from other businesses creating content as they are from you.
Yeah.
So the community angle then is to say, how do I take those people and let them interact, meet other like-minded people, interact with each other and learn from each other? And the way we see that's going to happen is not just through social media, but through creating a private space as an individual. And today that happens on platforms like WhatsApp, but it can also happen by running your own private community. And we do that with NAS.io as well.
Right.
So I think that in the future, you'll see small communities of entrepreneurs. We see that even in categories like, let's just say people love playing sports. There can be a community of people who love to play football, for example, or there can be a community of marketers. There's a marketing community in Singapore.
Yeah.
You know, they met each other through social media. They now talk to each other about ideas off social media.
Yeah.
So I think that the future community building is a skill that is going to be also very important, just like learning how to create content.
Okay. And how do you basically build, like a deep connections with your community, but at the same time, grow your business or like scale your business as well?
So I think that most content creators will make money from 1% of their audience. 99% of their revenue will come from 1% of their audience. So what that means is, in order to build a business around this as a community, you don't need to reach millions of people.
Right.
And so how are they going to do it? Well, I think that there is like 3 steps. So the first step is, once you create content, you reach people, you need to own your audience. So own means collect their email, collect their WhatsApp number. You need a way to own the data.
Yeah.
And then you need to build a relationship with them. So people do this for things like newsletter, where they can reach them every week without having an algorithm on social media in between. So they nurture them. And then they typically prepare a product or an offer to be able to introduce them to the business.
Okay.
So in the past, the way to build a business online has been, I build the product, then I find the audience.
Yeah.
Right? This is the old school method. The new way to do it is build the audience and then create a product for them.
Right.
Which is like the way we call it community-led growth.
Okay.
You build your audience and say, now what product can I build for them? So you have a community of entrepreneurs. What could you offer them?
Yeah.
You know what their pain points are.
Yes.
Now you say, okay, they really want to learn more about LinkedIn. Let me create a program to teach them LinkedIn. Oh, they really want events to meet other like-minded professionals in Singapore. I create a series of private networking events, right? Oh, they really want access to an accountant because they're interested in managing their finances better. Oh, I'm going to offer a service where I partner with an accountant to give them access to really good financial advice.
Right.
So you service your community,
Okay.
right? And you can build products around them. So I'm seeing people all over the world do this now, which is to say, I now have a dedicated group of people and I'm going to build products for them. And that's, I think, how you can build a business around a community.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. I have this one questions that I kind of like, also this is also one of the challenges I discovered as well, leveraging platform like LinkedIn to building my own list, like newsletter and all that. I find it very easy to build the newsletter subscribers through LinkedIn. I remember when I launched this, just within 2 days, I get 4,000 subscribers.
Amazing.
But when I start building my own list, it just takes so long.
Yeah.
And like people just don't subscribe to it. I don't know whether I have not been really promoting that list as much, but I find it leveraging on the platform, like, social media platform is a lot easier as compared to, building your own list. Any tips on that?
Yeah, so you're right. It is easier to get more people subscribing to a newsletter on LinkedIn, but it's not as powerful because, on LinkedIn right now, it's hard to get people's attention through newsletter because it's not prioritized by LinkedIn.
It's also long form and people attention span is...
It's a bit more difficult to get their attention. So this is more of a pro tip. So this is not for a beginner, but more advanced. If you are now looking to build your own newsletter, my advice is you need to offer them something exciting inside the newsletter to get them to sign up. So if you post on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, hey, subscribe to my newsletter, it's going to be hard. People will be lazy. They won't want to take that extra step to click on the link, put their email in. If you say, are you an entrepreneur? I have created the 10 best Google Chrome extensions for being an entrepreneur online, right? Like selling tools. You can get access to this if you give me your email for my newsletter, right? People will say, respond and say, oh, I really want that free resource. It's called a lead magnet. And they'll say, I will give you my email address. It's almost like an exchange. Right? I'll give you my email address if you will give me that free resource. That is my advice for people to get the best way to get more emails. But it's something that you can't just do once and expect people to sign up. You have to remind people. So it's something you build over time, but it is effective. So I've seen people in Singapore build up email newsletter lists of several thousand by doing this over time. Also, another way that I highly recommend is if you ever do speaking events, you can always put on the slides your QR code, sign up for my newsletter. This is another great way that people who have value from you in a talk or a session want to learn more, so they'll sign up. But if you do this newsletter, my final tip, you have to make sure you create regularly, so at least weekly. Because otherwise people will say, well, what am I getting? And they'll tend to unsubscribe.
One last question, Alex.
Sure.
What's that one thing that you wish you had known when you started your journey of like building your brand as well as community?
So the thing that I wish I knew is that the best time to get involved in platforms is early. Meaning that every year that a platform gets bigger, it becomes harder to grow. So if you told me this 3 years ago, probably, or 4 years ago, say, hey, put lots of effort in LinkedIn now because it's going to be a lot harder in 4 years. I would have put a lot more effort than I did. I put more effort in the last 2 years and I grew a lot. I have about 20,000 followers now, but I probably would have been a lot more had I started earlier. And I think LinkedIn is still at that point where it's early, meaning that people can start today on LinkedIn and still grow a lot. But on YouTube today, it's a lot harder because it's been around for a lot longer. And so today it's much harder to get 10,000 subscribers than it was 5 years ago, right? So my advice to everyone, what I wish I knew was get started today, not tomorrow. Just like with AI, AI tools today, the people who really innovate on this are going to have an advantage because they're early, right? So I would say for those who are thinking about building a personal brand, you today will stand out if you build your personal brand on social media. In 10 years, you may not, or even in 5 years. So start today, even small steps, and you'll see a lot of progress.
Cool. One quote that I always like to share is that the best time to build your personal brand was yesterday. The second best time is today. So
it's true.
Start today.
Absolutely. And it's funny because a lot of people think about LinkedIn or social media personal brand when they want a job. But that's actually the hardest time to build it.
Exactly.
Because you're looking for a job.
Yes.
But if you've been
you're like desperate, right?
Correct. And in some ways I feel like this world of, building personal brand, it reminds me a little bit of like dating, right? Which is that it's like when you really want to go on a date, it's really hard. But when you're not trying really hard, sometimes opportunities happen organically, right? Same with job. So I think it's like build now for the future. And
before you need it.
Before you need to go on that date, for a job, or whatever you need. So I agree with what you said. It's very true.
Okay, cool. It's been such a pleasure, Alex.
Likewise. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Same here. How do we find out more about the work that you do and your socials and all that?
Thank you. So if you want to find out more about NAS Academy, it's nasacademy.com. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Alex Dwek. Please just reach out. Send me, this is probably a tip for everyone. if you connect, always write a personal message.
Yes.
Because, if you say that you listen to me on this podcast, I'd be happy to chat with you. And otherwise, yes, do check out the program with PSB Academy, the Diploma in Media and Communications. It's a great program. We're really honored to partner together with PSB Academy, and excited to see the future of more and more content creators in Singapore.
Super cool. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the MindGem podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a review, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring conversations. Until next time, keep discovering your inner gem and shining bright.